SCG CON Philadelphia was this weekend, and it featured not one, not two, but three events of over 63 players or more. Day one, 110 players showed up in Valley Forge Casino in Greater Philadelphia for a Friday 1K event. Absolutely insane. 175 players came to play for the 5K on Saturday, and just to go home right before we went home, 63 players on Sunday as well. Lots happened in a small amount of time, and this was only, crazy enough, not even the biggest tournament of the weekend, which will be covered in the next video on the meta report. This is an SCG Con report. We're discussing the best decks from the weekend, my experiences there. If you want to hear all of it, you got to stay all the way to the end. Now, let's get into the breakdown. The SCG Top 8 Deck Breakdown. Ruby Amethyst did come in to claim 10 slots of the 24 on the list. Amber Steel and Ruby Sapphire had great showings with 3 each. Emerald Steel and Emerald Amethyst picking up 2 each, along with Ruby Amber coming in with 2, Sapphire Steel with 1, and Amber Steel with 1. Yes, this was a gigantic win for Ruby Amethyst as a whole. Ruby Amethyst also claimed victory to not 1 but 2 of the events this weekend, both featuring by Team TFM members Rob and George. We're going to get into those deck lists in this video, of course. But the nice thing about this is that a deck like Ruby Sapphire, a deck like Amber Ruby that really hasn't had too much success in previous weeks, both came out and had really great weekends. Looking at the list here, having Ruby Sapphire have 0 top 8s last weekend come in, have 3 this weekend, all in one weekend, 2 by the same player and 1 picked up by another. But nonetheless, that's good news for Popsicle fans out there for sure. Let's get in and start breaking down some of these deck lists. You may know him as Attack for 2 on Pixelborn, but we know him as Dave on Team TFN. Dave felt a little differently going into the weekend. If I really wanted to put up a list for all of the different variations of Ruby Amethyst that our team kind of had concocted this weekend, it would probably be pretty insane. However, Dave was confident in certain matchups and felt that he didn't necessarily need cards like Teeth and Ambitions against aggro, and to speak to that, he went 5-0 in matchups across 2 separate events against the matchup without Teeth and Ambitions. So all you diehard fans out there wondering if you need them, Dave says you don't. However, of course, he's rocking the Minnie Mouse Always Classy and not Olaf, which means he doesn't like warm hugs, and that makes me sad, but I am just kidding, of course. This list is pretty solid from head to toe and brought Dave with the exact same list, not 1, but 2 top 8s at SCG Con. In day 1 of Friday, he lost in the top 8, and in the 5K on Saturday, he ended up losing to Rob in the top 4. Dave played incredibly well all weekend. His conversations were insightful. His opinion and views on the Ruby Amethyst deck were truly irreplaceable for our team this weekend, and everything he brought really did help everyone get better and understand the matchups that we were targeting. Shout out to Dave again for a wonderful weekend. He only played in 2 events, top 8 at one, top 4 at the other. I don't think you can ask for too much more out of a weekend than Dave had. Shout out to Discord member Haxorus Love. He sent me this list on Discord. He ended up in top 8 of the Friday 5K, 110 players down to 8. And this list is definitely a bit interesting. First of all, he wanted to really point out that it's featuring not 1, but 2 Hydra. And Hydra is definitely one of the legendaries that hasn't gotten enough love probably into the Inklands. So seeing a card like that show up in a high number, and honestly, this isn't the only deck list that this card was featured in on the weekend at SCG Con. So it's really amazing to see this type of list come out and perform really at the highest level. Pluto has been a card to look out for. Pongo is an absolute all-star. The doc plays such a well role in this. And of course, at the end of the day, we are 100% a Mufasa deck, trying to high roll on our Mufasa triggers. I played against several different versions of this deck this week. This is one of many. I can promise you guys that this deck was in the field in a fair amount of numbers. I would have to say that across the board, even though the top eights look like a Ruby Amethyst heavy field, that it wasn't. It was very well spread out. Ruby Amethyst may have only really been 20% of the room, while everything else in the field was probably making up anywhere between 3 to 10%, or even maybe 15% in some cases. But in this particular event, finding your way into a top eight in which I felt like Amethyst Steel was actually the most played deck, which could be a problematic matchup for this particular list since it doesn't have a whole ton of interaction or really good ways to deal with a Jafar combo very well at all. So because of that, being able to dodge maybe that matchup, being able to get around some of its worser matchups, the matchup into Ruby Amethyst does feel pretty good for this list and other versions of this list. But all in all, a true shout out to Hacks for Us Love, community member on the Discord, for being successful in one of the biggest 1Ks to date. 110 players is a true achievement and definitely should be proud of yourself, sir. Ruby Sapphire is a deck that finished in the top 32 last week. I actually did a pretty long coverage of it on Twitch last week. If you're not following me on Twitch yet already, definitely check us out on the Forbidden Mountain at Twitch. I've been going there live once or twice a week, kind of discuss the happenings of the week that I don't necessarily cover in meta reports or SCG reports like this. But Ruby Sapphire was definitely a deck that kind of has been creeping up on the metagame, really taking claim over the Steel-ish metagame, but probably still finding some trouble in the Ruby Amethyst matchups. Nonetheless, this deck came out of left field this week in terms of metas, because we have yet to see it really be successful into the Inklands metagame. So having three of them find their way into top eights. Now, granted, one player 2 days in a row did hit top cuts, which is an incredible feat. There's only two other players in the field that were able to do that successfully this weekend. So being one of three players to make two different top eights and doing it with a Ruby Sapphire deck that was a little bit more of an unknown list, true shout out to you, sir. Let's break down this list. This list was the runner-up in the 1K on Friday. In the top eight, he had to play against the Mirror Match. In the top four, he had to play against Amber Steel. And in the finals, he did lose to Ruby Amethyst. This list is definitely a new take on the Popsicle vision. It's been very interesting. It's definitely been up and coming. Several different content creators have been covering this list now. It's been successful in different ways. Last weekend, there was a version of this list that went 6-2 on Pixelborn. It was successful. It had a winning record in a giant field. And this weekend kind of lived up to the same. I do believe because of how diverse the meta really is in terms of players playing decks, that we don't live in a world right now where 30 or 40 or even 50% of registered decks are Ruby Amethyst. And because of that, this deck can really, truly shine. It has a great matchup into a lot of the Steel metagame. Its matchup against Amber Steel is probably close to like 100%. Its matchup against Blue Steel can be done really well also. Also has about the same removal as the Amethyst Ruby decks does, so it can contend with the Jafar list as well. It really is sort of a do-everything type deck. However, it's on the slow side. It's a little bit grindier. It can run out of cards. If your opponent finds really effective ways to answer cards like Astan, if they have the Maui in the hook and your McDuck Manners can't stay on the board, it really is difficult to win. The one of Lucky Dime in this list is so very interesting to me. I'm very curious to hear, from this player how well the Lucky Dime was. It's definitely a card that I love to see. It's another legendary similar to the Hydra that hasn't gotten enough love, but finding its way into a few top eights over the course of the SCG CON weekend is incredible. This list is great. Seeing Tamatoa kind of come in as a 4 of in this list, bringing back all of the incredible items featuring Popsicles, Fishbone Quill, Heart of Tafiti, and the Lucky Dime to maybe even secure huge wins with big numbers with the big shiny crab is wonderful. Seeing 2 Scars in this list is awesome. It's a card that I really have enjoyed over the course of the last few months in different versions of Ruby Sapphire. All in all, I do think this deck has some time to shine in a meta game that is definitely diversified. If Ruby Amethyst isn't going to be the most played deck in every room, then Ruby Sapphire is absolutely a safe and secure deck to play because of the matchups everywhere else are pretty much in your favor across the board. The Friday winner was none other than Rob Serpay, team member of TFM, picking up the W for the Forbidden Mountain on Friday with none other than Ruby Amethyst. Rob played incredibly well all weekend, and he really didn't start slow at all. He found his way all the way to an undefeated record in the first day of the event, and then, of course, finished the top 4 on Saturday morning, picked up a round 1 bye, and never ever looked back. You can see in this winning list of Ruby Amethyst, there are no Queen's Castles. There are no Jim Hawkins. Rob was very confident and really, honestly, the first player on the team to really start pushing for a deck list that looked like this. He didn't want to play the castles. He didn't feel we needed gyms. He felt very comfortable being able to win the mirror without those cards. In all honesty, after playing this deck for 3 days myself, it's hard not to agree with those opinions. I can tell you that I won plenty of mirror matches, and it wasn't because my opponent did or did not have castles. It was mostly, in a lot of cases, because who won the die roll or who had a spell book. While castles can really extend your lead, they can actually also kind of halt them. If your opponent just flat out answers it with a Maui and a hook, or finds a way to fox and crab, and all you really did was put a castle into play and didn't move the game forward at all, and your opponent still has characters in play, it ends up losing you a bunch of tempo and kind of puts you behind. The card really becomes closer to how I feel about a whole new world, where you need to know when to play it, and it's not even going to be in every game. Very, very similar to my feelings to a whole new world. I just think that the better players will play the card well, but it's also notable that if the mirror match is kind of more decided on other cards than it is the Queen's Castle, then it might be safer to remove that card from your deck and try and shore up other matchups a little bit better, and just understand that hard mulliganing for maybe more aggressive hands or the spell book and things like that are much better than hoping your castle survives a turn or two. All in all, huge shout out to Rob. Not the last time you're going to hear about him on this particular video, because Rob was not only the winner of this event, he was the runner-up finalist of the 5K on Saturday and the runner-up finalist on the 1K on Sunday. Rob had a phenomenal weekend. 3 top 8s and 3 finals, with one of them being a win. It's really difficult to do much better than that in a single weekend of Disney Lorcana. Shout out to you, Rob. You played incredible this weekend, and I mean, just unbelievable. If you haven't met Rob yet, you can definitely find him over on Instagram. I'll put the link in the description below. Really great, genuine human being, really great community builder in the Maryland area. Just a ton of fun to be around. Really, I mean, like, really intuitive thinking when it comes to Disney Lorcana. The play shows it. Plays more than anyone else I know. I actually interviewed Rob last month after he won SCG CON Hartford 5K. So if you guys are keeping track, that means he's had 4 finals of Hartford tournament or SCG CON tournaments. In the ones that he has attended, he has top 8'd all of them. Emerald Amethyst found its way into 2 top 8s this weekend, but the first was definitely in the 5K, where it finished in the top 8. This deck eventually lost to Dave, playing Ruby Amethyst in the top 8 of the 5K, but nonetheless, Zach Weaver mulled his way through many steel decks in the 5K. Either he dodged or he played very well to win those games, because it's not a very particular easy matchup for this list, but this list really is sweet. I love Ursula. I love Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. I love the 4 Kid Cloud Kickers, the 4 Mothers Knows Best. 4 Friends on the Other Side is obviously unbelievably surreal, but all in all, this list is pedal to the metal and really enforces opponents to have answers fast. You can really get ahead of your opponents early and then finish off the game with Merlin and the Madam Mims so very easily. The Queen's Castle adds another layer of power to this list, because if you're able to really go wide against your opponents, from being able to pick out Be Prepared and grab your swords with Ursula, and then follow up with the Queen's Castle, put a couple guys on there, draw your cards even more. If you ever get to ready with Ursula Deceiver of All to draw 4 cards with friends on the other side, that is absolutely backbreaking. This deck really is been a very successful deck over the course of the metagame in general. In recent meta reports, it's been very successful, and it really did find a way to be successful again this weekend, being in the top 8 of the 5K, and another list similar to this one, winning the 1K on Sunday. What would an SCG meta report be without a top 8 by Dick Burns? In all honesty, I had an incredible weekend as a whole with the entirety of the Lorcana community. But Dick Burns has become an honest friend of mine. We went to dinner twice this weekend. He was just so much fun to be around, so insightful, so many interesting stories and life lessons. And I am so very excited that Lorcana has brought me a new friend in life, because it's really great. And I just learned that he now lives in New Jersey for a few months, which means I'll get to see him even more coming up. Very, very excited to spend more time with Dick Burns. Here's another shout out to Dick. Thank you guys so much for an awesome weekend, sir. Let's talk about your deck. Dick Burns finished in the top 8, losing to Rob in the top 8. This matchup in the top 8 specifically, because I was able to sit there and watch the entirety of the games, it was absolutely decided by the standings, I would say. Rob going first in game 1 was basically a non-game for Dick. He could not at all keep up with the pressure. Game 2 was the complete opposite. Dick Burns was on the play. He pretty much slaughtered Rob entirely. There really wasn't a matchup again. And then game 3 was the exact opposite one more time, where Rob applied pressure early, never really took his foot off the gas, and Dick just simply could not recover. This matchup is very tough. It is kind of how I have seen the matchup as a whole as well. Dick and his team, Luxury Gaming, decided that this was one of the best lists that they could put together. They test played and were successful in the weekend prior with a very similar list, if not the exact same list. Making the cuts for Lady Tremaine and Medusa is an active choice. There is a point in the metagame where people have stopped respecting Lady Tremaine. There's also a point to petition that it's harder to win games. It takes longer to win games. So a card like Lady Tremaine over a few Medusas adds a couple more lore to the game. The Queen's Castle, of course, is consistently a way to really close out games as well. This deck lacks a spellbook in general, which I found interesting, because I found most of my mirrors this weekend were decided almost entirely by who got their spellbook and who could best use their spellbook. So not even to have any here is honestly a bit remarkable. What I can say for sure about all the different versions of Ruby Amethyst that you're seeing on this list is that I felt like in set 2 that they were kind of like 40 or 45 card list that had the, variables that change in and out 15 or so cards if you wanted to. I think the deck is starting to show that it's closer to a 50 card deck now, and the last 10 cards are a little more interchangeable, kind of based on your choice and the favorite that you like, of the week, basically, or just making your best educated decision for the matchups that you most expect in your local metagame, which is also a reason why our deck changed from event to event to event, because every day we were kind of molding and adapting to what we had seen the previous day to better prepare for the next tournament, which if you're taking these lists from this event, you should really be embracing that attitude. Don't expect that this is the best version of this deck, because it's not. There's always a way to upgrade and make the deck better. And if you're not actively doing that, then you're actually going to fall behind. So make sure when you're taking these lists from this week, yes, they were great. They're played by great players, but I guarantee you that every person on this list would definitely change a card from it. Shout out to Colin R. playing Sapphire Steel Wheel. I was able to watch the entirety of the top 4 matchup that he played against George, and it was a really, really grindy matchup. Game 1 came down to literal 1 card left in Colin's deck, and it was a very, very close match. I believe Colin got to around 18 or 19 lore and just simply ran out of gas. George was able to pick up the final few points of lore with the spell book, with a couple go triggers, and really come from behind on the draw in a big way. What I love about this deck so much is Grandma Tala was massive. I mean, she's so big, she's so powerful. She really does add incremental lore gains throughout the entirety of the matches that you play. And at the end of the day, she's a 4/8 body. It's simply difficult to remove her from play unless you had very specific targets. Cards like Dragonfire, cards like Maleficent obviously get the job done. And unfortunately, she kind of has to remain unexerted because the moment you do exert her, Maui can kind of just come in and take her out with Maui's hook pretty easily. So she does have to be a little fearful of Pinocchio as well. What I do enjoy for the first time in a while was watching this list play out and understanding that one jump ahead gives you another play pattern in this deck that I don't think many are ready for that quickly. With one jump ahead, you can play Popsicles on one jump on 2, and then actually, if you would like to, you can just go ahead and hire him on 3, draw 2 cards of your Popsicles, and straighten out your hand a little bit more. And that's really just like kind of the backup plan, I would say, in most cases. But you can also play your Popsicle or your Develop Your Brain on 1 jump on 2, Fishbone Quill on 3, add a card to play. On turn 4, add another card to play, and then ink your turn. And all of a sudden, you can actually play Grandma Tala on turn 4 without even shifting. And if you can get a 4/8 body in play on turn 4, and then for the next several turns, your opponent has to kind of figure out how to get rid of it, that can really go a long way in games. And it can definitely give you quite a good amount of lore counts from just inking, playing a whole new world, kind of resetting the board, being able to protect her with Cogsworth at that point. Lots of really, really good things going on for the Grandma Tally here. Having the package of 3 Rise of the Titans is something we're starting to see more and more through some of these steel mid-range decks. Deciding to go with 3 Smash over just another song is notable. It definitely has a target. It's definitely not wanting to lose to cards like Ursula, among other 3/3 targets or 3 willpower targets in the format. I'd have to say that this deck's favorite card nowadays is probably Gaston. Gaston is such an intellectual powerhouse. Yes, that was pun intended included, of course, but that card can be played so very easily on turn 4. Have a 3 lore body in play that nets you a card of your choice off the top of your deck. It just adds the layers of how much fun, of how much power this deck really can pack. Cogsworth, of course, is the center and all be all cog of the deck, being the ward, adding the resist, adding the layers of annoyance that this deck truly brings is just the number one reason for this to play this deck. I really felt that Colin played incredibly well in top 4. Definitely an incredible event for Sapphire Steel Wheel to make it to the top 4 of a 175 player event in a very diverse room where some of the matchups probably were not very easy to get through. Huge congratulations to you, sir. You played well, and I really did love seeing the Grandma Tella stand out in a list that I thought she was really going to be very good in. Georgie, the 5K winner of SCG Philly. George picked up the biggest win in North America in 2024. 175 players came, and Georgie remained. It was an absolute phenomenal run for George. Over the weekend, he had told me that he wasn't feeling very good going into the week. He didn't really know how Ruby Amethyst and the versions of Ruby Amethyst we were working on were going to do well into the format. He wasn't comfortable playing other decks, but he stuck to his guns. He listened to his teammates, and he came out absolutely on top and successful in this win. It was a remarkable win to see him and Rob in the finals, duking it out for who was going to take home the trophy. Of course, I'm going to have George on the channel sometime in this week. So definitely, if you're looking to hear from George himself, hit me up in the comments below with questions for him about this deck list. and I will do my best to get them answered for you when I interview him. All in all, I think he's going to tell you himself, this deck was fun, it was remarkable, and it's 61 cards. Let's talk about it. If you go back in the video and you look at Rob's deck from the day before, you can tell that this list is extraordinarily close to it with a very minor 2-card difference. The first difference is -1 Medusa, +1 Dragonfire, and then, very simply put, +1 Maleficent Monsters Dragon, because George really wanted to play 3, and, well, he didn't know what to cut. So George ended up winning the event with a 61-card list, a carbon copy basically of the day before, minus the one change of going down to Medusa to get the more versatile Dragonfire for more problematic cards, and one more answer to a problematic matchup, which was Jafar. All in all, I don't want to spend too much time on the deck list. We're going to be covering it at length in our interview with George right here. Huge shout out to you again, sir. Great win, great anime story comeback, as we were saying throughout the weekend. If you're looking to hear more about it, definitely hit subscribe to the channel. Definitely leave a comment below asking George a question. I will get them, as many as I possibly can, answered. And if you have been liking this video so far, make sure you smash the like button. If you love George like I do, smash the like button. And of course, one more time, if you're enjoying the content, you like videos like this, hit subscribe. Let's finish the list. Shout out to Amber Steel this weekend and Kurt Spice, another TFM member. The one member of the team that simply did not want to play Ruby Amethyst this weekend. He felt way more comfortable playing Bayou Songs. This Is My Swamp is a really funny name for this list. Of course, you know, this is a deck that Kurt has been tuning for weeks and weeks as he had been approaching the meta, understanding what his matchups were and what he was predicting was going to be in the field. He will tell you for sure that this deck gets absolutely stomped by Ruby Sapphire. His matchups into them were almost non-games. He did eventually lose to his top 8 opponent playing Amber Ruby, which he said were very tough and difficult matchups for him. And all in all, he was quite content with the list on the weekend. He was mostly always in a winning position, finishing with a positive record in each event that he played in. So if you're looking for a different layer to add to your Amber Steel decks, then add some Bayous in and check out what this card can do. Last but not least, we're going to look at Rob's final list of the weekend, in which he took to a second place finish at SCG Philly in the Sunday 1K. Now you can see this list looks a little bit different again. Now we're missing the Minnie Mouses entirely. We have went up to a 3rd dragon, and we actually put back in a single castle. Why did we do these things? When you play an event or a convention, and you know you're going to play multiple days against the same sets of players, and you're doing well in tournaments, and you're understanding what else is doing well in tournaments, you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to move forward. You have to be able to evolve. This is where having a team becomes, honestly, very important. We're able to take our lessons learned through the group of players, process the information, and help figure out how to move the deck forward. Yes, our deck won the day before. 175 players. 2 of almost the exact same deck list were in the finals. But it didn't mean the deck was perfect, because in all honesty, guys, no deck is ever perfect. If anyone ever tells you that this is the best 60 cards and you can't do better, they're wrong. They're inaccurate. In every single event that you go to, the weekend's deck list from before, the best thing you can do is take it and modify it to your event, to your community, to your local. You know what your own community is playing in your tournaments. Don't just take this 60 card and say, oh, it won a 5K last weekend. This is the best deck. That might not be true for the room that you're in. You need to understand your meta game. That's what this deck did all weekend. We understood as a team how to develop and get better. Yes, picked up a 1st place win. Awesome. Picked up a 2nd place and a 1st place win. Awesome. Picked up a 2nd place win in the final tournament. Awesome. The deck is clearly very good. It's very powerful. But as I told you before, there were other Ruby Amethysts in top 8. All of the lists look incredibly similar to this. They're all almost 53 cards the same in a lot of cases, with only 7 or 8 random cards mixed in for 60 or 61 card list. Ruby Amethyst is getting thinner and thinner on the replacement cards for most of the successful decks in the format to this point. So all I'm trying to tell you is take your list, but modify it to your metagame. If that's the one lesson you can learn from this video, I promise you it's the best lesson that you can learn. Mold and adapt to the tournament that you're going to and the expected metagame that you believe will be at your events. A final shout out to Team TFM. Not everybody in this photo, because we took this at almost 10 o'clock at night. We were like 5 of the last 10 people even in the convention hall, because that's how late the Lorcana event ran. But in this picture, you can see from left to right, it's Drew, me, George, Dave, and Rob. The 3 on the right had a much better weekend than the 2 on the left. But as a group, as a team, we were successful. Everyone picked up great wins this weekend. Everyone had incredible success. It was so satisfying seeing the members of my team play well, get rewarded for it, and really just all of the effort and all of the work to go into to really be successful in SCG CON pay off. Those types of things happen when great people come together and work well. And Team TFM really was formed about a week after SCG CON Hartford. We came together, we started working together, and it really has shown already that we're ready to bring the heat to these events, guys. We're so excited. It was a lot of fun. We was very successful. The goal was conquer SCG CON, and we completed it. But that's only the first goal. So much more to come. If you enjoyed this video today, please let me know about it in the comments. How'd you feel about SCG CON if you were there? If you weren't there, let me know in the comments. What can I do more? It's really difficult. I really do enjoy that SCG CON is giving Lorcana the opportunity to be played at their conventions. At the weekend, there was 390 players in the modern event, and there was 175 players in the main event for Lorcana. They also held a Flesh and Blood event, and I couldn't find a number reported for the Flesh and Blood event. So what that tells me is that Lorcana was bigger than Flesh and Blood at a Star City Games event in which Flesh and Blood has been featured for years now. So that is a good sign for Disney Lorcana. I would love for SCG CON to cover it more. I think it would do wonders for the game if there was more things going on from SCG because of Lorcana. So I'm going to keep shining lights on events like this because they're important for Lorcana. It's important to go and support your local game stores. It's important to go and support conventions that are bringing Lorcana in front of more people. It's important to support a convention like SCG CON that's free to get into. There is no badge cost. You can walk in the door, pay your tournament fee, and win thousands of dollars. It's so very important to support the paper TCG that is Disney Lorcana. That's why we're here. That's why we're covering this video exclusively about Star City Games, because they are betting on Disney Lorcana being successful, and we really need to show up and show out to these events and start seeing bigger and bigger numbers. 128 players for the 5K in Hartford, 175 players for the 5K in Philadelphia. In 1 month from now, 1 month from today of the release of this video is SCG CON Atlanta. If you're in the area, go support the game. Go play at SCG. Go see how phenomenal the events are run. I couldn't believe how quickly the events ran at SCG CON. Every event ran so very fast. It was over. I was still able to go and eat dinner. I was able, to just enjoy the event, the community, and everything. It was so very run. The judge staff was incredible. Everything about it was remarkable. If you're in the Atlanta area, seriously, go to SCG CON Atlanta, support the game. Maybe you'll even see me there. Who the hell knows? All in all, thank you guys so much. This weekend was amazing. Honestly, I had so many of you guys come up to me, talk to me, have a conversation, shake my hand, give me a fist bump, give me a hug. I had a few members actually hand me foil Forbidden Mountains. I promise you guys that when I get to 100, behind me, we'll remove this whole thing, we'll remove this whole Forbidden Mountain scene, and from right here behind me will be a frame, and on that frame will be 100 framed foil Forbidden Mountains. I think I'm at like 34, 35 now after the weekend. I believe like 14 of them were given to me this weekend, which I think is surreal. It was a lot of fun, and I couldn't be more grateful for how amazing you guys are. You truly make me doing this even easier. So thank you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, from Scott, from the rest of the team. Thank you guys so much for the support. Of course, we got the new swag in. I was so excited. I was wearing the old hoodie Friday and Saturday. I got home, and the new hoodie was there. If you're looking, listen, if you want to support TFM, in the link below, there's a spread shop. You can go in, you can buy a shirt, you can buy a hoodie, you can buy a cup, whatever you want to do, buy a bumper sticker. However you want to support us is great. But honestly, just saying thank you, saying keep up the good work, all of those things mean so much to me. It was so very nice to have the conversations I did. This is just the SCG CON meta report. The next meta report will be the full scope. It'll include the 250 player event from France in the breakdown, along with some other 1Ks and 2Ks that also occurred in the area. So this is only the first meta breakdown of this week because it's about SCG CON, because I had to give them their flowers and I had to talk about the event. I was there on the scene, in it. I talked to players. Shout out to them. So many great players this weekend. In all honesty, I had an absolute blast. I'm going to keep rambling if I don't stop. So if you're still here, thank you so much. If you have not yet, for whatever reason, hit the like button. And of course, if for whatever reason you haven't joined the family, we hit 4,000 subscribers over the weekend. Keep it going, guys. Keep supporting. Keep giving us love. We're going to keep growing. We're going to keep doing awesome things in the Disney Lorcana community. Thank you guys so much. One last time, shout out to my team. Everybody was incredible. And shout out to everybody that I went to dinner with. Melissa, her husband. Oh my God, I forget your name. It's Fishman something on. Yep, I'm sorry. I forgot your name. George, Ursi, Dave, Dick Burns, Scott, the Young brothers. It was so great to see everybody. I'm going to stop. Thank you guys. See you in the next one.